I'm walking through the Reformation series that Desiring God put together to give you a fuller history of Christianity. Join me.
When you think of Guillaume Farel, you probably picture a kind of superhero of the Protestant Reformation. You know, this fiery preacher who single-handedly changed the course of history. But what if that whole heroic story is more of a myth? Today, we're going to dig into that legend and try to find the more complicated truth.
So the story of Guillaume Farel, the legend, it usually kicks off with this image, right? He's the thunderous voice, the passionate evangelist who just lit a match and set the entire French and Swiss Reformation ablaze. He's the spark that started the fire.
And then, the next chapter in this epic tale is his big, dramatic break from the past. Farel is painted as the guy who saw all the so-called corruption of the medieval church and just fearlessly rejected everything. The Pope, the saints, the sacraments, all of it. A clean break.
And for all that courage, well, he got a pretty epic nickname. He was traveling through these treacherous mountain passes to spread his message, and he became known as the Apostle of the Alps. It just paints this picture, right? A lone hero battling against impossible odds. Of course, there's his most famous moment. I mean, this is the scene everyone knows, right? He basically corners this traveling scholar, a young John Calvin, and convinces him, some even say he threatened him with God's wrath, to stay and lead the charge in Geneva. It's the ultimate kingmaker moment, totally shaping the future of Protestantism. I mean, it's a fantastic story. It's super inspiring. But you got to ask, is that the whole story, or is it a carefully built myth? Let's put that legend to the test. All right, first up, we're going to do a little fact-checking. Let's sort out the myth from the reality here and see what holds up. Okay, so let's break this down. The basic facts of his life? Yep, those are solid. He absolutely did convince Calvin to stay in Geneva. But, and this is a big but, the myth starts to get a little shaky when you look closer. His sudden conversion? Well, it was actually more of a gradual shift, really influenced by the humanist thinkers of his time who wanted to reform the church from the inside. And this whole idea that he was saving people from superstition, that's seriously misleading. It just dismisses centuries of really deep and complex theology.
So why does the hero story get it so wrong? Well, a big reason is that it leaves out some absolutely crucial context. To really get Farel, you have to get the world he came from, a world the hero story just kind of ignores.
So on the left, you've got the claim that you hear all the time. The church had totally lost its way in superstition. But then you look at the reality. On the right, the idea of salvation by grace, which is like a cornerstone of the Reformation, it wasn't new at all. It was actually a really deep part of medieval theology, something major thinkers had been talking about for centuries.
And check this out. This quote just nails the point home. This is from Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. And he was writing a full 400 years before Farel was even on the scene. There is no merit without grace. I mean, that's a crystal clear statement on the primacy of grace, coming straight from the heart of the very period the hero myth calls a dark age.
And there's more context that the hero myth just kind of sweeps under the rug. Farel's ideas, they weren't some return to an ancient, pure practice. They were brand new interpretations. And this idea that his arrival was some peaceful liberation, not so much. It was often violent. It led to iconoclasm, the actual destruction of religious art, and massive social upheaval.
So, if the story is so simplified, you have to wonder, how do these myths even get made? And why are they so sticky? That's what we're diving into next, the storytelling playbook. Seriously, think about it. Why do we love these stories so much? The lone hero fighting the big, corrupt system. They're compelling, they're really easy to understand, and they give us very clear good guys and bad guys.
Well, according to our source material, the Farel myth is built on a few really key narrative tricks. You can almost think of it like a three-step playbook. You have the corruption to purity trope, the heroic liberator device, and the idolatry polemic. Let's break those down.
First up, you've got the corruption to purity trope. And this is classic storytelling, right? You paint the past as this time of total darkness, just complete decay, and that makes your hero's arrival feel like this glorious sunrise. It's super dramatic, but it wipes out all the nuance from the period that came before.
Then there's the heroic liberator device. This one is all about the zoom lens. It focuses everything on one person, making them the sole agent of change. So Farel becomes the guy who frees everyone from ignorance. And that totally ignores the bigger intellectual currents, the social movements, and the countless other people who were involved in this huge historical shift.
Okay, so if we peel back all those layers of myth-making, what are we left with? Well, it's a legacy that's a lot more complicated, and honestly, a lot more human.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Farel wasn't some bolt from the blue who just showed up and changed everything. He was a product of his time, deeply, deeply shaped by the Catholic humanist movements that were already calling for reform from within the church. He was part of a conversation, not just the guy who started it.
So, in the end, Farel was this man of, just incredible conviction, no doubt about it. But that same fire also made him a polemicist, a fiery debater whose confrontational style helped break Western Christendom apart. He was a reformer for sure, but he was also a divider. And his legacy has to hold both of those truths at the same time.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. It's so easy, so tempting to create these simple heroes and villains. But when we do that with Farel or with anyone else, what do we lose? What complexity, what context, and what part of our own shared story gets left behind?